So how would you create a faction at the highest
Yeah,
of the level?
yeah. So one of the things that I think that a lot of people do is they try to they'll create a faction without really thinking about it. Just give a faction name and they go on with life.
Mm-hmm.
What I would like to do is just give you like quick quick tips on it. So first, pick a cultist. I'm sorry, a cultist. Pick a faction's name. Right? They could be cultists. They could be the king. They could be the mages. They could be the esoteric order of Dagon. They could be, I mean,
Thieves
almost thieves
Guild.
guild. Any name you want, and that will help really quickly figure out what they're going to do. Now, that's the quickest, easiest thing you can do. The next thing I want you to do is pick out what the faction's goals are. Now, that
Mm-hmm.
I think is key because this is where you can actually make the faction come to life. So, what is the Thieves Guild's goal? Is it just to have a Thieves Guild? Well, that doesn't make any sense. I would put some sort of nefarious purpose behind the faction that you're creating.
They're
So,
infiltrating every single major city, and once they can get their grip on enough of the politicians
yeah,
because they're
they're
using their money to
blackmailing them.
blackmail,
Yep,
then they can actually start creating a black market, and then they can start selling a lot more nefarious
perfect. That's a great
goods.
example of a factional goal. So you could have just your kingdom, right? You just have your
Mm-hmm.
king. Well, what's his goal? Well, he wants to rule the world. So he's becoming very conquest. Or you could have a different side of it. You could have a king who's barely gripping onto power because things are falling apart.
Yep.
And so maybe his goal right now is to figure out
How to keep power.
how he can wed other people so that he can consolidate his power.
Mm-hmm.
You could have a cultist group. They're trying to raise some sort of ancient deity, or maybe they're trying to come up with some esoteric knowledge that they can use to create new magic that's horrible and terrible.
Mm-hmm.
You could have a mage guild. What are they trying to do? Well, the mage guilds could be at odds with each other. There's factions inside the mage guild, and they're fighting over, do we just become esoteric scholars of lore, or are we actively involved in the world? And then those of us who are actively involved in the world, there's those who are actually involved in the world because we're better than everybody and we should be the rulers. And then there are
Yep.
those that are, we're actively involved in the world to help people and make sure that magic is understood. And then on top of that, you could throw in another, maybe the king hates magic actively because of how it's used in his world.
Kind of creating like a Witcher where they're hunting down the
Hunting down
sorcerers.
the sorcerers, right? Or Dark Sun's world from AD&D, D&D 2.
Where they kill every single
Because
arcane user on site.
because anytime you cast a spell, so I think it was something like 1 gallon of water for every spell level was taken every time you cast a spell.
Yep.
And now the entire world had turned into sand. And the
Mm-hmm.
entire world was basically in danger of dying because too many mages. So anytime they found a mage, they killed the mage because that mage was in danger of taking away the last oases of water left on the planet.
Yep.
So there's all these cool things you can do. So a faction name and a faction goal. The faction goal really, really helps. Then what I want you to do with the faction goal is pair it with the method. And what is a method? Well, it could be espionage. It could be terrorism. It could be overt power. It could
Mm-hmm.
be subterfuge, secret society, assassination. It could be economic. It could be blackmail. It could be, maybe it's seclusion,
Mm-hmm.
right? They so like Japan, feudal Japan, when they were like the pinnacle of all technology, they decided to basically just stop all trade with everybody and shut their borders for like 200 years,
Mm-hmm.
and the world passed them by. So you could have isolationism as a strategy.
Yep.
You could have just genocide as a strategy. Like, so what I want you to do is like pick a method that they use, and the reason why you want to pick a method is because what you just said with the Thieves Guild. So the Thieves Guild's method could be assassination.
Yes.
But in your case, you said, no, 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 no. Their method is blackmail and infiltration.
Yep.
So they're going to be about espionage, blackmail, infiltration. And when they do those things with enough people at enough high levels, they now have puppet states,
Yep.
right? Puppet city states. And that's huge.
Who are willing to overlook the
They have to.
nefarious purpose of the black market.
Now, I don't want to get into American politics, but I will say this. It feels like, right now specifically,
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of politicians that will say and do anything they can just to get re-election, even though they know what they're saying and doing is wrong.
Yes.
That's probably been true for all of time. So it's really easy for me to understand a scenario where this politician's willing to cut his nose off his own face to stay in power
Yep.
because he doesn't want to be outed by the Thieves Guild. So, fine, I'll vote for legislation that I would never vote for, or I will pass rules, or I will make laws, or I will use overt power to enforce things that I am disagreeing with because I really cannot have that thing in my past come out.
Yep.
So I totally believe that's a great scenario. And the last thing you want to talk about is what happens if they win. So what does the world look like if the Thieves Guild in this scenario wins? What does it look like if the king can consolidate power? What does it look like if the king does conquer the world? What does it look like if the mages that are wanting to go out in the world and be better than everybody do take over?
Yes.
What does it look like, though, if the mages that want to help people take over? What does it look like if the isolationists, so what if all magic users were forced to go into isolation on their own accord? Like, other mages would find them and bring them back and hold them prisoner because they don't want magic in the world. They want the world to forget about magic. What does that do? And if you think about what magic would do in a D&D type of world, of just being gone, it would be a crazy amount of consequences.
Well, you have no medicine in that world
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's all magic.
Absolutely. There's no medicine. There's no tech, really. I mean,
Why?
not in that regard. It's all magic,
Why do you need penicillin when you have a cleric that can cast cure disease?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and maybe they're doing it because by consolidating all of their magical power in one area for 50 years, they can then strike out and take on the world.
Yep. Because you crippled it to the point where nobody can do anything.
And now you're saviors. You don't have to conquer it.
Yep.
You just show back up and just do signs and wonders, and everyone's like, oh my God, thank God.
Yeah. You just need to outlast most of the human population.
Yep.
Because the elves are going to be the elves anyway, and if you strip magic from them, they're not really that powerful anyway.
Exactly. So why I want to, this is really kind of cool. So if you're going to make a chart of this, you just create your name, your factions, goals, their methods, and what if they win. And then the thing I would recommend is creating one or two other factions that might have competing interests in that, so you can actually create a conflict. Now, if you want more on this, Jacob and I have written actually several books, but one of the books we wrote is called RPG Adventure Ideas. You can find it on Amazon. There's a link to it in the description. Love for you guys to go check it out. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can pick it up for free.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's I think it's $3 on Amazon for Kindle, and I think it's $8 or something like that in paperback. So there's a lot of ideas in the book, and we've covered a lot of the topics here as well. But it just gives you one little place where you can go and find it. And that will conclude us for today. Thank you guys very much. Take care.